The sun was already dipping below the fur-lined horizon as I pulled up to the cabin, its wood weathered but strong, shadows pooling thick beneath the eaves. A thin trail of smoke curled lazily from the chimney, a reminder someone had kept this place ready, waiting maybe. I dropped my bags on the wide wooden porch, the soft creak of aged boards underfoot echoing in the stillness. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pine and old leather, and a single dusty lamp stood on a side table, waiting for nightfall. I ran my fingers over the rough-hewn table, grateful for the silence that promised a break from the city's relentless hum. For a moment, the only sound was the distant call of a crow breaking the late afternoon calm. I unpacked slowly, lining my things along the counter with methodical care. A worn jacket folded beside an old book, provisions stacked neatly. The dimming light through the small windows cast long, thin shadows across the counters and floors, spreading the quiet like a thick blanket over everything. Outside, the breeze whispered through the needles, rustling softly but never breaking the stillness inside. I moved to light the small gas stove, its soft hiss carving a pocket of warmth that smelled faintly of molten metal. Settling into the creaking chair by the window, I cupped the warmth between my hands like a fragile secret. The woods beyond looked unchanging, eternal almost, waiting silently for the night to deepen. As night swallowed the light, I curled beneath a thick blanket on the sagging couch. The dark outside the small window was a velvet black, pierced by the faint, cold gleam of distant stars. Tonight, the forest was a mass of black shapes against the sky, rustling occasionally like a slow breath just beyond earshot. I could feel the faint hum of life all around, creatures hidden in the shadows, their eyes unseen but surely watching. In the silence, even my own heartbeat sounded too loud. I stared up at the ceiling's knotted wood grain and counted the spaces between the floorboards, telling myself the cabin was just a shell of wood and nails, holding only what I brought with me. Morning arrived pale and gray, the sky a thick quilt of clouds pressing down on the treetops. I noticed my backpack by the door wasn't where I'd left it. It leaned awkwardly against the wall near the stove. I blinked, checked the floor, and moved it deliberately back into the tight corner where I was sure I'd stashed it last night. Food wrapped neatly in its plastic bags also seemed slightly shifted in the cupboard, a small packet half unveiled. I shook off the strange sensation gnawing at me, blaming the exhaustion from the drive. Maybe the cabin's creaks and shadows were playing tricks on my tired eyes. But something about the stillness was less comforting now. An almost imperceptible tension hummed beneath the quiet wood. Later that day, I stood in the empty living room, staring at the rickety wooden chair near the fireplace. It wasn't where I'd left it last night, angled oddly, as if someone had paused mid-move and never finished the gesture. The chair's rough slats cast long, spindly shadows reaching out under the dim overhead lamp, the worn floorboards groaning faintly beneath them. I approached slowly, my footsteps unnaturally loud against the silence, and nudged it back to the corner. The weight of the still air seemed heavier all of a sudden, as though the room itself was watching and hesitating. Night stretched like concrete across the cabin again, dark and suffocating. Beneath me, something stirred, a shift of weight, slow and deliberate, coming from the floorboards just under the bed. It was faint, barely a sigh in the silence, like someone inching along, careful not to be heard. My breath caught, and I pressed my ear against the floor, heart gnashing beat by beat against my ribs. The shadowed corners of the ceiling seemed to pulse with a quiet dread, as I sat frozen, terrified the smallest sound would become proof of a presence not meant to be here. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel trapped beneath the cabin's structure. I focused on breathing, the faint dappled moonlight leaking between the curtain cracks, painting ghostly stripes across the floor. The quiet tap, just one, came again under where I slept. Slow, measured, deliberate. It was too polite to be wild and too human to be a coincidence. Every nerve tightened as I sat upright, eyes straining in the half-dark, waiting for a shape to unfold from the black. Daylight crept through the curtains sluggishly, pale and hesitant. I moved a rug near the foot of the bed, fingers trembling, and felt the hard edge of a hatch embedded into the floor. It had been hidden all along beneath the frayed edges, coated in dust that betrayed its neglect. The metal ring handle was cold and stiff under my grip as I hesitated, the cabin suddenly vast and uncharted beneath my feet. I didn't want to look, but the lure of what might lurk below was fiercer than fear. Shadows pooled against the wooden threshold of the hatch's edge, a portal to something unseen and disquieting. Night fell thick and heavy like spilled ink. I refused to open the hatch right away, my gaze flickering anxiously to the spot beneath the rug every few minutes. Each creak of the floor seemed louder, a sinister murmur pulsing just off stage. The atmosphere thickened with unsaid things as I wrapped myself in the blanket again, ears straining for the slightest scratch or scrape. The fear wasn't in what I could see, but what I couldn't. The sealed darkness pressing insistently beneath the cabin boards where eyes might be watching. And then, from below, a slow, sharp tap echoed distinctly beneath my bed, unmistakably calculated. The following morning, nerves knotted tight, I moved the rug aside again and forced the hatch open with a wrestling creak that screamed into the quiet. A faint musty breath rose from below, a crawl space of cramped, rough-cut wood beams and cold stone walls. I slipped the flashlight's beam inside, tracing dark corners and peeling paint as dust swirled in the air like scattered memories. There, neatly arranged, were the remnants of a secret: folded blankets crusted with years of dust, crumpled food wrappers that smelled faintly sour, and a small black camera balanced precariously on a cracked wooden beam. I shivered, realizing the crawlspace wasn't empty. It had been someone's hidden refuge. My hands trembled as I darted the flashlight upwards, revealing a tiny crack in the floorboards. A deliberate slit just wide enough for the camera's lens to peer through. It stared blind and accusing, cold and unblinking. I felt watched from the shadow beneath me, a presence frozen like a spider waiting silently in its web. Panic swelled in my chest, constricting breath and pulse. The cabin's walls no longer held warmth, but a tense, claustrophobic menace, the wooden slats whispering secrets I wished I never heard. I slammed the hatch shut with trembling force, scrambling backwards against the wall as if distance might somehow protect me. The cabin around me breathed heavy, the silence fractured by my ragged breaths and thudding heartbeats. Every creak of the timber house now vibrated like a warning. Every shifting shadow seemed to squeeze tighter. I paced erratically, eyes darting to every door and window, searching for an exit from this trap cloaked in wood and trees. My mind filled with impossible questions. Who was watching? How long had they been there, beneath me? The house no longer felt like a refuge, but a cage. Despite the terror, I began packing in a daze, stuffing clothes cobbled from drawers and crumpled blankets into my backpack. The motion was frantic but hollow. each folded shirt and zipped pouch a fragile attempt to restore control. My hands kept glancing toward the floor, as if the hatch would spring open on its own and spew secrets I wasn't ready to face. Outside, clouds rolled heavy and gray, shrouding the woods in a deeper gloom. Every soft thud I heard seemed magnified, sounding closer. Impossible now to tell if it was wind, wildlife, or something else entirely. With the cabin still heavy around me, I reached for my phone to check for a signal, a lifeline to the outside world. Screen lit up sharply, too sharply against the dimness of the room. There was a new photo in my gallery, one I did not take. I stared, frozen, as my own face appeared, sleeping in this very bed. The angles were impossible unless someone had set a camera beneath the floor, watching me through that tiny crack. The image was grainy, but vivid enough to shatter my disbelief. I was being observed, quietly, relentlessly, from the darkness beneath my feet. Desperation clawed through me as I threw open doors and windows, eyes wild. The forest outside seemed to lean in, branches scraping against glass like fingers trying to pry open the cabin's defenses. I checked every shadowed corner again and again, searching for any sign that the watcher had come above. But all that greeted me was an oppressive silence and the slow, relentless drip of rain beginning on the roof. The house felt empty, yet charged, as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for something unseen to slip free. I grabbed my backpack, keys, phone, even a heavy cast-iron pan from the stove, anything to feel armed. My footsteps echoed sharply on the porch as I locked the cabin door behind me, the cold night air biting beneath the dripping pines. Every breath was a cloud of frost. Every movement echoed under the dense canopy. I felt eyes trailing me from the blackened tree line, shadows brushing just beyond peripheral vision. The stillness around me was deafening, punctuated only by the slow snapping of twigs underfoot and the heavy drip of rain from the eaves. I moved swiftly, almost running along the gravel path, winding away from the cabin, leaves crunching sharply beneath my boots. The forest around me closed in, branches clawing at my jacket and dripping cold water. Every sudden rustle froze me. Every shifting shadow turned into a threat. My breath came in ragged gasps as I glanced back toward the cabin's dim outline, each time catching the faintest glimmer of something, an impossible shape receding into the wood, or maybe only a trick of the storm-blurred vision. Safe for now, I reached my car, parked beneath a break in the trees, rain cascading off its roof like a curtain. Hands shaking, I fumbled the keys, heart still slamming in my chest. The cabin stood behind me like a dark sentinel, the rain muffling its creaks, but never silencing the memory of being watched. I threw the door open and slumped down inside, the interior alive with the scent of damp earth and pine resin. As the engine roared to life, I forced myself to look back just once, only to see the faint glow of a single light flickering in the cabin's window, as if someone or something was still waiting. Later, looking through my phone again under the harsh flicker of streetlights, I found a second photo I hadn't noticed. The same blurry, grainy image from beneath the cabin floor, but this time it showed my face from just inches away, eyes wide and staring, frozen in fear. The chilling perspective implied a slow, patient watchfulness, waiting until I became too tired to notice. There was no longer any doubt. The watcher had claimed the cabin as its domain, and I had been merely an unwitting guest, under close, unyielding surveillance. In the quiet aftermath, I deleted the photos and called every number I could think of. trying to explain the nightmare that had unfolded beneath the cabin's floors. But the images lingered, etched on my mind like fingerprints on glass, and in the corner of every dark room, I saw the faintest shadow flicker where no one should be. The woods remain, and the cabin still waits, silent but not empty. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear a single slow tap, like a warning from some unseen place just below, still watching, still waiting.